right. Welcome, everyone. I'm not sure if everybody has already joined online, but hello, my name is Corrine Heck. I'm the CEO and founder of Details Flowers, and I'm very excited to introduce you guys to the newest Bloom TV star and the winner of the contest that we put on this year, Janelle Gerestein. Welcome, Janelle.
Thank you. It's fun to
Yeah.
be here.
Yeah, well, congratulations again. You were the winner. I think we had over 125, I think close to 150 entries. So really exciting to be in your presence as
Oh,
the
yeah.
yeah.
Oh, well, thanks for having me. I didn't even actually know how many people had entered, but so now I know.
Oh, yeah, it was a big we kinda culled it down and, did all the votes, so, well, we can show pictures on our blog afterwards of your winning design and everything, but most recently, you had the opportunity for anybody that's attending that didn't know, Janelle entered a contest, I think back in when did we do this? In September?
I feel yeah,
Um,
probably yeah, or
September?
end of August. Yeah, September is probably about right.
Yeah, and so, BloomTV, who's one of our fabulous partners, and Rosa Prima and Details all got together and thought, let's put on this contest to do the next Bloom TV star. And we had a lot of entries and a series of voting and levels, and Janelle ended up being the winner. And congratulations to you. Your design was absolutely beautiful. And I think you have a lot of friends out there in social media world too that helped you like win that too. So you'll have to give us your secrets. But you recently did a photo shoot and a video that is going to be launching here in the next couple weeks, I think, of Bloom TV. Would you care to share? I know that's why you're here. Tell us all about it. Give us the scoop.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. So a film crew came from Denver, where Bloom TV headquarters are.
Yeah.
And they came here, was it like 2 weeks ago, maybe now? So we filmed for 3 days. The first day I met them out in Canmore, which is close to the Rocky Mountains. It's just outside of Banff National Park. So really beautiful mountains everywhere.
Canada.
Canada,
Yes, you're
yeah, say
Canadian.
Canada,
Yes.
yeah, hint Canada. Yeah, and there was snow and mountains. It was quite cold that day, but
Oh,
I
yeah.
met them, yeah, I met them in the mountains and we did a little filming there. And then the second day they came to my studio and then I was putting together the start of our centerpiece. Um, and then they did, a little bit of my husband and I walking with our dog in the park because we live right across from a provincial park, which is really nice. And then we also did kind of like they interviewed me, just asking about my business and yeah, how things were going. And then the next day on the Friday, we spent the whole day filming at the Fairmont Palliser Hotel, which is probably the most luxurious hotel in Calgary, where I have a lot of weddings. So yeah, so they let us film there.
That's amazing. But it took so long, I feel like from the planning to getting all the recipes. It was like quite a back and forth, like it almost was like another event, I have to say, like a big time
Well,
thing.
coordinating with everyone's schedules and then
Yeah.
trying to figure out how to come over like internationally and which dates. And the crew from Bloom TV too was, I think they are filming a bunch of different projects. And so trying to line up their schedules with when I didn't have a wedding or something else. Yeah.
Yeah, it's always that way, isn't it? Well, I saw the pictures of the behind the scenes and the absolutely beautiful tablescape that you created, and it had gosh, a ton of Rosa Prima products. So I would love to see that recipe breakdown. I'm sure we can share that
Yeah.
once it finally launches, just to see what you actually used. How was that? Have you used Rosa Prima products before?
Um, I haven't. No, this is the first time because none of my wholesalers carry their product. I know. So I think with the exchange rate and the shipping,
Mhm.
it's too expensive to bring them up here. So unfortunately, yeah, I don't get to purchase them often or well ever. So it was really great to be able to get them
We'll
and like
see what you're
see
missing,
some.
right?
Yeah, yeah.
No, that's well,
That's
that's just one of the other learning curves. You have actually, as I was reading about your background and everything, you are very well traveled. And I'm not sure how you ended up in Calgary, but you've been what in I think Bolivia, South America, and that's where you started your company with your husband. And I think you had a stint as a peony grower in New Zealand. Would you care to like share like your background? Because you've been at this for like
Yeah.
what, 20 years?
23 years. Yeah. Since high school. So it's been a
You're
few
just a
years.
baby. You're just a baby, you know.
Yeah. I'm only 25. Yeah. No.
I know. When did you start when
A
you're
few
two?
more years.
Yeah.
So yeah, I started in high school. I'm from a very small town of at the time like 10,000 people, just 2 hours east of Calgary.
Okay.
Calgary is the closest big city to where my parents and siblings live.
Okay.
But after I graduated, yeah, I wanted to travel a little bit. So I went to university and I also went to floral design school.
Mhm.
And in between, I went to New Zealand and worked on a peony exporting farm and also did some bridal bouquets for the farm. So it was like an agriculture exchange. So I lived there and worked kind of for free. They paid a little bit just so I could travel around in my off time. So that was really cool. I love peonies; they're my favorite flower. So that was
Okay.
perfect. And then I really wanted to learn Spanish, so I also lived in Mexico and learned Spanish and would go to all the flower markets. And I did do one or two weddings in Mexico as well, but I didn't have the business yet. And then after university, I went to move to Bolivia to better my Spanish and then do volunteer work as well. And then yeah, and then I got married and I wanted to stay in the country with my husband. And so I was like, let's start a business. I have my business plan here. It's not for South America, but or Bolivia, but we'll make it work. So yeah, everyone, like my family, his family, everyone thought I was crazy starting a business in a country that is not my own and my second language, but we made it work.
Well, and I feel like that a lot of people, when they're getting into floristry, get a lot of opposition from their families, right? About like making that as a career decision. As you know, it was the most beloved thing in my life. So I was like, oh no, I'm all in. Did you experience that same kind of like, don't do this?
Not don't do this, but have a backup plan. So
Oh,
that is why I did go to university. So I have a degree in management and my major is marketing. So I
okay.
thought, well, that works also if you have your own business, but there's also other doors, that it opens if flowers didn't work out. But I did, not just from my parents, but like even from the business owners of flower shops that I worked at,
Mm,
because my thing was this was 23 years ago is I wanted to be an event florist doing weddings,
mhm.
be home based and make a living out of it. And that was like really not a thing. Everyone's like, no, you need to have a flower shop. Like there's no way you
Mm,
can just make a living off of doing weddings and events.
right.
And yeah, my parents like, yeah, get a degree, but like make sure we're not sure about this, right? And being also from a small town, um, I mean, the budgets were very low at the time.
Mm,
So even my husband was like, can we make a living off of this? I'm not sure. Like, right? When people are only paying $500 and then DIYing the rest of their weddings, like
Yeah, is
flowers.
that part of the reason why you moved to Calgary to be in like a
Yeah.
larger market? Yeah.
Exactly. So we have three bigger cities in Alberta. And so the plan was to choose one of them. And then
Mhm.
we went and kind of visited them and went to one of the bridal shows. And the vendors actually were really, really lovely and really supportive and nice here.
Yeah.
And then Calgary is the closest. So we just really felt that this is where we should come once we just moved to Canada. Yeah.
Yeah. So tell me, how long have you been based in Calgary? And tell us a little bit of background about your business and how you got started and how big your team is.
So we've been in Calgary since 2012.
Okay.
Yeah, and we were in Bolivia for only a year with the business, and then once my husband's permanent residence came through, we decided. Well, basically, the government was like, "You have 1 month to come back to Canada, or you have to do all the paperwork again." So
Yeah.
we're like,
You're like, nope,
"Okay."
we're getting back
Yeah,
soon.
because we had just signed a lease to have a storefront in La Paz in Bolivia,
Mm.
and then so lost the deposit, had to sell all of our inventory and stuff. But it was better than like having to redo all of that, like paperwork. It's crazy. Yeah, so we've been here since 2012 in Calgary. And so it started just my husband and I. We were pulling all-nighters sometimes. Now I have it's the two of us, and he also does videography and photos for our company, and he
Oh,
also
really?
has his own wedding videography, clients as well.
Hmm.
But we have 4 part-time employees besides us, and then about like a handful of contractors that come in when we have bigger event weekends. Yeah.
Hey, it makes for a nice combination. My husband was a photographer, so he did the wedding photography. And when brides would sit with the flowers, I would sell them on the photography too,
Right.
or vice versa. It
Yeah.
was like a package deal, and people really love that. So, is the wedding industry really uh, large there in Calgary, or how many weddings do you do a year?
I don't do as many as a lot of florists do because I have a minimum spend of 5,000 Canadian. And
Okay.
in mountains, the minimum spend's higher. So I do minimum spends based on location and how far we have to travel. Um, and then I do have a designer's choice option that's pickup only, but I do between 40 to 50 a year. So I'm not
Wow.
being crazy. I try to do only, maximum 2 per weekend, unless there's one extra smaller one that picks up. But I know some florists will do like 10 plus weddings a weekend. And I'm very organized, but I don't want that stress. We did 7 one weekend, and I was like, no,
Yeah.
the minimum spend is going to go up and I want to do less because it's a lot to
Yeah.
communicate with that many brides and make sure everything is,
Flawless, right? You have to give
flawless. Exactly. Yeah.
five-star customer service when you're dealing with those higher end events. They
Exactly.
expect a lot
Yeah.
more. Um, so you've been a customer of detail. So I was so excited when a florist that won was actually one of our customers, because I was like, oh, this is the way that it's got to work. But um, can you tell everybody about your experience with details or when you started with us?
Um, I actually am not, I'd have to go back and see when I first made my first proposal. I think it was 2019. Um,
Okay. I probably have the records too. So
Yeah, I think it's been 4 years, maybe 5 years. So I'm a chapel designer, and then I believe it was Holly Chapel had mentioned about details, and I
yeah.
have been using Excel, and I mean, my husband's great in Excel and made me, formulas and everything, but it was just not enough, and it was just taking a long time, and then trying to do proposals separately in, Canva or something else, which works, but this is just it's so great. I just love details, so
Well,
yeah.
and I saw that you did the whole design TV plans in there. So that to me was like making my heart happy, because I was like, look at this. This is like exactly the way I would want to see it done. And really, I think it makes it so easy for all the people that are involved in it to kind of get a picture of what it is you were planning to do and get, their sign off on it. Because obviously was a huge investment on their part to do this Bloom TV thing.
Yeah,
Um,
for sure.
can you tell us about that like experience of being on camera, and what what about it was the hardest, most difficult or challenging part of being involved in a production like that?
Um, well, thankfully, because my husband is a videographer, I've had
Oh
experience.
yeah.
He's filmed me doing videos before and or behind the scenes at weddings and things. So I wasn't too nervous. I think it was more just coordinating the right times, and with the time we just had a time change. And so the first day we're like, are we going to lose the sun before, Jen was calling me from Bloom TV, like, the sun is starting to go behind the mountains. Are you going to get here in time? Should we meet you somewhere else? Yeah, the change in time and things go, we just lose sun really quick here in the winter. So that was a little bit stressful, but honestly, everything just went really smoothly. Yeah.
So did you have to do was it particularly cold that time of year? Because I would imagine when you're delivering events and so forth, being in the northernmost, even further north than obviously most American
Yeah.
states, you have to do a lot of prep work to keep the flowers in really nice shape. I imagine you have to double bag or something. Is there anything special that you have to do on conditioning of the flowers to make sure that they can withstand, at least for that picture, right? Get the photographs right before they all.
So we were very blessed with good weather. It was actually perfect weather for the Bloom TV shoot. It was just cool enough that they weren't freezing, and it was like the temperature of a cooler.
Oh,
Uh,
they love it. They were
So they
just so
loved it.
happy.
They were just so happy. I didn't have to beg anything. It was great. Though on the way to the shoot, my husband, I should have been driving probably, but he like stepped on the brake suddenly. Someone cut him off. Anyway, water was all over our van, and we did have to like we brought extra.
Yeah,
Well, we
no, you
water
have to be
as soon as we
prepared.
got there, but we had our little watering cans and filled them up. That was the first thing we did as soon as we got there. But that was yeah, that was it. Normally this time of year from November until March, usually we do have to like put 1 or 2 bags if it's really cold. If it's like minus 20 or more Celsius, super cold,
Yeah.
definitely double bagging it, which takes up way more room in our vans, our delivery vans, and we
Mhm.
just need more people to help load. And yeah, there's certain flowers like the anemones that they're the first things that they like the white ones will brown like crazy, and they'll look fine outside. Everything will look like they'll feel like porcelain, and they'll look nice for photos outside once they're outside, but once you bring them in, the change
Mhm.
in temperature, they'll just start browning and they'll just wilt on you. So
Yeah. I mean, I imagine, I mean, here in Florida, we're dealing with all kinds of extreme weather conditions as well, but a cold is something I'm not accustomed to. And we should actually do a blog on this because that would, for newer florists, especially not knowing how to condition things to get the most optimum
yeah,
presentation of these flowers, especially for a photo shoot where it's like a one, a one-off thing. It just has to be good for a certain amount of time. But if you don't do anything right in the preparation of them, it can be very tragic and
yeah.
expensive.
And I have a wedding coming up in Banff in January, and the
Yeah.
couple, they're American. I can't remember which state they're from. But anyway, we are ordering double bouquets, double boutonnieres, double corsages because they're going to do a ceremony outside at the Fairmont Bath Springs Hotel, and so that it's a very good possibility it's going to be very cold. And so they've ordered double of everything, and then their ceremony flowers. We also have we've priced it in so that we can bring in replacement flowers so that we can reuse them inside after and just take out what will have frozen.
Yeah, no, well, and I think that's something that you really have to educate your clients on too, of what is the normal expectation, because they might not have any idea. And if, you don't want them upset or create some kind of level of expectation that you just can't meet because of weather. So that's really a good thing to know. When you were doing the contest, what were your expectations from this? Like, why did you want to enter? And what were you hoping to get from it?
um I'm really not sure. I it's exciting to enter contests, and I thought,
Yeah.
oh, um it's just something. I don't know. I think it's just fun to do and to put your work out there and have other people vote on it. And I've won a few contests in the past. So I thought, oh, maybe I'll like try with this one. I
Yeah.
really wanted a year free subscription from Details. I think that's like
Hey.
the main thing. I was like, oh, if I can win this, that'd be great.
No, that's awesome. That's the hard part about, when they selected one of our own customers, 'cause I was like, "Ah, bummer." No. But you were definitely the shining star in that, and I think it's great. And you've been such a joy to work with. I feel like everybody, over there like Monica Michelle is just like, um, you're so fantastic to work with. So I think that's been a kind of a common theme along that,
Everyone has
line.
the whole team has been really great. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm working with everyone.
So other than winning the Bloom TV contest, what has other been some other things that you've done that have, I know you are a chapel designer, um, and obviously you are very well schooled, and I feel like you have a lot of education behind you. But is there anything that you can suggest that newer florists just starting off can do to increase their skills, or just like continuing education? What has really worked for you?
Hmm. So I would definitely say continuing education. Um, yeah, my designs were really not good at the beginning. They were really bad. I stuffed things, I put them way too deep. Even when we first started in Bolivia, and that's when I started doing bigger arrangements. I mean,
Mhm.
it was limited for the varieties of flowers we could get there, but my designs have come a long way, and it's been,
Mhm.
yeah, you just have to practice a lot. And it was my husband actually that really encouraged me to do Holly Chappell's workshop in London, England in 2015.
Okay.
So after that, I just really got we made a really large hoopah and elevated centerpieces, and it gave me more I guess, courage to take on bigger orders. And as soon as I got back from that workshop, I increased my minimum spend, and a planner reached out to me and was like, "Can you make a hoopah?" And I was like, I know what that is, and I can make it." So just by having that education and by having practiced it instead of
Mm,
just watching it, if you're watching an online video, that's great to learn, but I think it's really the hands-on to get the confidence of what you're doing is
yeah.
important as
And
well.
I've seen that time and time again. I mean, we've attended tons of workshops, and, a lot of those large hanging installations are something that some people are just so scared to do it. But if you go to a workshop and that's their main focus, just doing it one time or seeing the different techniques or things that, how they raise that up or what
Yeah.
the rigging points are, once you see it, then you're like, okay, I know this. I can do this. But that fear of the unknown is a lot of time a big um reason for people to just say, no, I'm not going to do that. And it could be the difference between someone getting a job that's really a decent budget versus not, is who has the confidence to say, yes, I can do that. So I
And it
agree.
has to be structurally sound
Yeah.
is the thing, because anyone could say, "Oh, I can do that," but then you do not want a hanging installation falling on top of people on the dance floor, or an arbor. This has happened before. My husband was filming a wedding. I was not the florist, but they didn't have design experience or had taken one workshop, and the flowers were not designed well, and the arch fell over. The flowers flew down the mountain. Um, it was it was not good. That
It
would
was a disaster.
Yeah,
People
it
have
was pretty
great
much.
footage of that though. It's like what not to do. You could do
Yeah.
some blooper reels. Do you guys find that you're working together a lot simultaneously? Because
We do quite a bit. But then he also works with some planners that have their own florist, like that they have an in-house floral designer. So then we obviously don't do the flowers, but and because our pricing is both higher, we don't always get the same weddings because some people might be wanting more focus on flowers and they'll pay more on flowers, and some people will want more on video. But we have had a lot together for sure. Yeah.
Well, it
Um,
definitely was a huge asset for me when my husband was photographing an event because I finally got quality pictures of all of my work. So I'm sure you can attest to that too. It's like it pays to be married to the guy clicking
yeah, yeah.
the picture there, right?
And we started originally when we started our floral business in Calgary, he was a photographer, and then we
Mm.
got into video, but he doesn't do photography anymore, just for me. So I'll have him photograph my designs before they leave. And yeah, and then I get like little clips, or when he's putting together his video, I'll be like, "Hey, get this angle of the flowers, or can you like slowly pan this way with your camera?" Or yeah, or I'll be like, "This one doesn't look so great right here. The bouquet's probably been out of water for 10 hours at this point. Let's just not have that one in your in the video." So
Yeah.
it's yeah.
I imagine that it's pretty, I mean, obviously it's pretty seasonal there as far as when you're doing events and when is there ever a time when you're like, that is just too frigid to take on this kind of event? Or is there not a time of year that you're like, I'll do it all, like whenever, wherever? You sit on
Um,
the top of a mountain. So I imagine that's pretty windy up there and
yes. Yeah, we
always.
have done a lot on top of mountains. We've needed to go up by gondola to get all the flowers up a few times.
Oh, wow.
Um, I would say so. August is definitely our busiest month. It is so crazy, August. Usually
Mm.
June to October are really busy, but August is definitely the prime month. And then the rest of the year is we still have weddings every month, but it's definitely lower in December, January. I find maybe February a little bit as well, which is okay because then we have Christmas workshops and orders for the holidays, and it's nice to have a little bit of downtime. But I would say the only time where I don't take weddings, or very, very rarely, is between Christmas and New Year's, because our wholesalers shut down for that time, or they aren't getting in product regularly. Um, and then with shipping and farm closures and things, I just find it's really stressful to
Well,
try.
you're really in a unique spot because you're like very kind of far from Miami. So I imagine, do you import anytime or do you solely rely on just your wholesalers there in Calgary?
So I use Holix, and I'll bring in from Holland. And
Okay.
then our wholesalers, I have a wholesaler too that will ship me from Vancouver. Um, and they'll get flowers brought up from Miami. And same with the wholesalers in Calgary, they'll bring flowers up from Miami as well on trucks. But then it's all that time driving to get here. as well.
Yeah.
Takes takes some time, and then we can't always guarantee when the product's arriving, especially during holidays. And then one thing that happened, I think it was last year, maybe the year before, from Vancouver to Calgary, there were a bunch of there was flooding and landslides were washing out all of the roads. So that was really terrible, obviously, for the people that lived in those communities that were affected, but we couldn't get our product in either locally from Vancouver. So
Yeah. I mean, I feel that pain for a lot of more remote people as far as where the flowers are being imported from, because you're really at the mercy of whatever
mhm,
everybody is telling you. So it doesn't matter what you told the client that you would be able to get for them if there's no roads or so forth. So one
mhm.
more challenge of being in business for yourself. So you really, I feel like, have built a very beautiful brand there in Calgary. Is there anything that you did to set yourself apart from the competition that others might be able to implement in their own business strategies?
One thing I did when I started, which I think most florists do now, is have a lot of photos on their website. So,
Hmm.
when I was first starting and first getting a website like 13 years ago, most florists just had, I mean, their websites were very boring, not very many photos, and they were mostly like a standard, just, click here, $65 or upgrade to
I know.
100, or,
We've all seen those. Yes.
those. And so I was like, I want my website to be very heavy with photos, really nice photos. And then Instagram and Pinterest too, because I get a lot of traffic through Pinterest and Instagram. I think Pinterest isn't really used as much as it could be, for a social media and search engine platform. So just putting out, and I also put out only what I want to design. I'm not only designing like big, beautiful archways, but I don't want to be putting greenery table centerpieces, runners, because then you'll just get asked for more of those. And I'd rather do the more creative designs.
I
That,
think that's
yeah.
superb advice to put out the work that you want to do more of, or
Yeah.
something similar to this. But yeah, and I think that's how a lot of florists have really elevated their brand or brought in that higher end clientele, because they can see that either you can do it or that's what inspires you too.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. I really love using color. So I feel like color and texture and variety
Mhm.
is big. So a lot of my couples, I know white and blush is still very popular. But when clients come to me, they usually have a very specific color palette in mind, or they just want color. So I do white, obviously white and green, but it's definitely a very small amount. My clients are wanting color, and yeah, and
Well,
lots of
you can always steer them in the direction
yeah.
that
Little
you think would be best. Hey, I think this would be really good. So you had mentioned that you did a lot of studying with Holly Chapel, but you also did something, I think it's the Swedish master florist at Olds College. Can you
yeah.
dive into that? What is that? And where have you gone? What's the furthest you've traveled to do some type of education?
So with the college still exists, Olds College. It's just an hour north of Calgary,
Okay.
and it's a horticulture, agriculture school.
Hmm.
The program doesn't exist anymore. Unfortunately,
Whoa.
I know it's very sad. I think the year after I graduated, or 2 years after, they closed the program.
Okay.
Just not enough interest, because we spent 8 months or a year or two learning, and then we go out there to the workplace, and then we get paid minimum wage still. So
Mhm.
I think it just really demotivated people. But the year that I did it, there was the professor was a master Swedish florist, and she was so amazing. And so that's where I learned the European hand tied bouquet, and really learned to perfect that.
I
Was,
gotcha.
yeah, I think that was the main takeaway from that. And then the farthest place for a workshop, um, I think probably London. I've done workshops, like I did a workshop with Sinclair and Moore in Seattle, when
Oh,
he was
I've
there.
heard of
And
that.
yeah, and then I've done a couple with Holly Chapel, two in London and one in North Carolina.
Have
Uh,
you been involved with AIFD at all in the past?
oh, I haven't, because there's symposiums, and to get in, it's always in July when I have tons of weddings.
That
So that's
makes sense.
why.
And that's such a time of the year when most like florists in the States don't have a lot of work. But you see how the tables turn with the weather. So that's just the way that it is. Well,
But
I
sorry.
invite you to one. It's really amazing, and all the florists, you just can connect with so many different people. So we do really try to heavily promote that.
Okay, yeah. Well, I've done my first, I guess, semester or course towards my European floral design master certification.
Yeah.
So if that all goes well, I'm hoping to be in Bruges for the final in September. But I
Where's
might
that?
wait another year
Where's
in
Bruges?
Belgium. In Belgium.
Okay. Yeah, I was
So hopefully, yeah.
close of Brussels.
Yes.
Um, yes, I've met the gentleman who runs the European Masters in
Yeah.
Inner Flora, and it's such a niche group of people who are just the most artistic people that you've ever met, like going to do these different programs. So it's really exciting and also inspiring just to see all the ways they use their creativity. Have you ever entered those like more like Inner Flora or a design competition that is really focused on those techniques or so forth?
I haven't, no. The only ones that I've entered have been with like Alexandra Farms. And so I've
Okay.
won like 3 of their um awards, I guess, or for their for
We love
designing. There's and then local, but for like Calgary's best wedding florist. So I won 3 years in a row for that. But
that.
no, I have more to discover of contests and
No, well, you
things.
never know until you enter, and I think that's kind of the thing which I would love to see more people, just throw their hat in the ring when it comes to these different design competitions or so forth, because I think most people are intimidating, and when they see that the people who win are just so fantastic at what they do, but they're not afraid to put themselves out there to be like, maybe it's not everybody's cup of tea, but, it could be the
Yeah.
winning design, so,
Yeah, you
yeah.
never know. Just enter whenever you can and yeah.
Yeah. So what is coming up for you after so the launch of this Bloom TV show, it's a pilot as I understand it. Is this going to be a recurring thing or what did they tell you about?
I'm not
Um
sure. I don't think it'll be recurring. Um, I think it's just like a one-time segment about our business and the design. But while they were here, they did film kind of like a sizzle reel for to like maybe launch a pilot for something else. So we'll see if that turns into anything. But I would love to have them back here or to go there and do some more filming. And yeah, because I am interested in getting into teaching a little bit more. I
Awesome.
love weddings. So weddings, I absolutely love them, and that's what I mostly do. But I've started to get into teaching local workshops for non-florists, though florists have come to in Calgary, and I pair it with usually a dessert like peonies and pie or peonies and prosecco or something, and then they'll be like I'll rent out a space, a really nice. Usually it's a wedding venue space as well, and then there'll be like 50 usually women, but also men have joined. And then we'll design, I'll teach them to design a centerpiece. So we've done peonies and pie. And in September, we did dahlias and donuts. And I want to do one that's, tea and tulips and tea or tulips and tiramisu. I'm still trying to figure that out in
Yeah.
January, February. And then we have like a bubbles and blossoms one with a really beautiful Italian venue, a restaurant coming up in March. So a few, yeah, like public workshops, and then I donate a small amount to local charities from those. So that's fun.
Yeah, that's really nice. Do you do a lot? I imagine you're working at some of the nicest venues in Calgary too, as you've established your brand. Any advice for anybody as if they're trying to break into like more of a luxury market or getting contracts with these different venues?
So probably approaching them to do a photo shoot first is a good way. So that also clients can see your work in their space.
Yeah.
Because until you've actually, I mean, clients will hire you without seeing your work in their venue, but you're much more likely to get work if you can show that you've designed something in their space and that you understand the space. And then also just to bring flowers to the event coordinator or event manager like that runs the space. That's
Mm.
always a nice thing too. And building relationships with planners that work in those venues too that are recommended first. before
Yeah,
us.
great advice. I don't want to upset your videographer husband, but you got to have lots of photographer friends, right?
Also that, yeah. I do.
No, well, that's really, really cool. I think it's so special, those relationships with those venues, because I found that I was often frequent the same 4 or 5 venues, and they knew they could count on me. And those were always my favorite venues to make deliveries to, just because I knew all the housemen and the bellmen and where to go and how to access all those points. But then they were the ones that knew they could depend on me, that were driving that business. So uh, take care of those people first, for sure.
Yeah.
Uh,
Advice. Yeah.
yeah. So where do you get all of your inspiration? Where does it come from? Do you sketch? Do you find pictures of things that you just want to recreate? Or um, yeah, where do you draw
Many different
inspiration from?
places. So I mentioned we have a provincial park across the street from where we live, and I find the changing seasons, walking through the park, just seeing things differently. There's always something. It seems like it's my husband's like, "Oh, this is boring. We're always walking this path or something." But there's always something that looks different, I find, to
Yeah.
appreciate nature. So nature really inspires me. Um, I also like paintings or art galleries. Last year, I think it was one of the photos I submitted to your contest, but
Mhm.
I just really wanted to create florals that looked like they were supposed to be in an art gallery.
Hmm.
So a little bit more modern. Yeah, so inspired by that. Inspired by a certain color I see and how it would pair nicely with something else. Yeah.
Well, I could, from my observation with you too, is also different cultures, I think. Just because you've learned Spanish, but you're also now taking a French class, I think you said. And I love that, because I'm not a very my language skills are, I barely can speak English sometimes. So it's like, but how do you approach that, learning a new language? And do you find yourself having to go and immerse yourself in that for a little while too? Because
Uh,
you deal with customers where you can't even speak the language when you first started your company. So what was that experience like?
So I was fluent in Spanish when I started the company,
Oh,
but
okay.
I didn't have necessarily all the technical terms for floral design. So I was learning those as I went.
I see.
But I had been I had been living in Bolivia for about a year and a half before I started our company
Mm.
there. And I was in Mexico for 6 months before then. So I was fluent in Spanish. I just needed to like brush up on all of the names of all of the flowers, because sometimes the names change too between countries.
Yes.
Even that speak the same language, they might have, like more of a local name for something. So there was a bit of that, and making those connections, because I mean, my husband's family was all from there, but they were not in the wedding, like floral or events industry. So making those connections. I think we will have to spend some time somewhere that is French speaking to fully grasp it. Right now, when we go on our walks, we try to speak French to each other, but it's usually a mix of I mix Spanish and French badly. So trying to, I also studied Portuguese and a bit of Italian. So sometimes I'm just throwing in all kinds of things.
You could maybe have a second location in Montreal. I see that as maybe,
Yeah.
but I think it might be a little distance.
The distance, and there's not as many weddings as here.
Oh,
I think we're at actually um I think also in France, just from what I've been learning in our French classes, is just there's not as many weddings that happen.
yeah.
Um, but also living where we do now, we're so close. We so many of our clients, probably more than half, are Americans that come
Okay.
for destination weddings in Banff.
Yeah.
So it's actually really great for weddings. So yeah,
Well,
and my
that's
husband's like,
awesome.
maybe we should move somewhere else. I'm like, oh, I don't know. I think
But it's hard to uproot, especially when you have an established business, and it's doing well. So it's really hard for people to like uproot themselves. But
yeah,
maybe doing like a satellite office or
yeah,
something somewhere, just to kind of put your
yeah.
toes in the water there to see if you might want to branch out. But thank you. I have loved talking with you. Congratulations again for the Bloom TV
Yeah.
honor. And I'm looking forward to seeing the full video. Do you know how long it is?
I don't, but there's probably like 20 plus hours of filming. So I
Oh,
imagine it would be at least 7 minutes, but maybe longer.
isn't that crazy?
Probably
The amount
longer than that. So like maybe 15. I don't know. They didn't say, but just based on the amount of footage. There
Well,
was
we'll put the sneak peek on our blog. We're gonna do a recap of this conversation, and then when the full video comes out, we're gonna be sure to like blast it everywhere and say, "We know her." We know we know Janelle. If anybody wants to reach out to you or follow along on your journey, where should they follow you at?
probably Instagram is the best or Pinterest. It's just at Flowers by Janie.
Thank you so much for doing this and being our November masterclass guest. Hopefully, you guys have learned something about the process or entering competitions or just putting yourself out there to do more and elevate your brand. So, thank you, Janelle, for joining us, and I can't wait to see what you create next.